Each of you, when you came in today, was given a little gift by me. If you have it, please take it and look at it for a moment. It looks like this. Okay, there are extras in the back if you didn't pick one up coming in or no one gave one to you. And I'm sure you're probably wondering, what is this? Well, it's actually something called a tuit. And what's interesting or different about this one is its shape. Most tuits that you come across are square or triangular. But this one is different because it's circular, around. And this is going to change the world. It's going to change your life now that you have one of these. Because the diets that you always wanted to start, you'll be able to start now. And the work that we wanted to do, the prayer life we've wanted to begin, all the different projects around the house. Now, this is going to revolutionize your life and the world for having this. Because you'll be able to get everything done now that you've always wanted to do. Because after all, ask yourself, how many times have you said, well, I'll do it when I get around to it? And the rest of you can get around to laughing to my joke when you get to it. Yeah, how many times have we said that? I'll do it when I get around to it. So now you got your round to it. Take it home and let's see what's going to get done. Well, in today's gospel reading, we hear the encounter of Jesus with what I like to call the would-be disciples, or the people that will follow Jesus when they get around to it. And Jesus tells them, no, don't wait until this happens or that moment in your life. Do it now. Forget about anything else. Just come and follow me. He makes it kind of an urgency to his message that they have to leave and follow him immediately. And so often you and I in our lives will not follow that immediacy of the call. We wait. We decide, well, I'll get to it, especially a prayer life. Well, I want to have a prayer life. I want to be, talking to the Lord regularly. I really want to live out the Christian life. I'll do it when I get out of college. I'll do it when I get settled. I'll do it when I get married. I'll do it when the kids are grown. I'll do it when I retire. And we spend our whole lives never doing it, always pushing it ahead, procrastinating, and waiting for the right moment to start following the Lord. And we realize, sadly, that following the Lord is the way we're meant to live this life, not something that we start once everything is okay. I like to think of it as saying, well, I'll start using my GPS when I'm no longer lost, when I'm on the right road. Well, the GPS is precisely the way to get us out of being lost, to put us on the right road to the Lord. And the gospel is our GPS, our God positioning system that helps us find the Lord and follow him. And so we do ourselves a terrible disservice if we push off following the Lord until we get the right time for it. When will be the right time? It will never come. If we always make excuses for it or push it off when I get around to it, you know very well we almost never get around to it. And so for some of us, it will mean a regular prayer life, saying, well, I pray once in a while, I'll say something to the Lord, but I want to spend more time in concrete quality prayer. Great. The way to do that is simply pick a time frame in your life, especially if you have a moment every day that you know for you is free time, that you can sit and pray with the Lord, and do that. If you have the ability to come and sit before the Blessed Sacrament here, come to church and pray. If not, a place in your home where you can be alone and just sit, and preferably where you can talk out loud to the Lord and nobody is going to hear you. And I think one of the best ways that many of us have is when we're driving and alone in the car, turn off the radio and the music and just talk to the Lord. And in fact, these days, you don't have to worry if somebody in another car sees you talking while you're behind the wheel that there's something wrong with you. They could just assume that you're on your hands-free answering, taking a phone call that way. So there's nothing to worry about. And we can talk out loud to the Lord and just share with him what's in our lives. While there are beautiful rote prayers that many people will pray every day, and they're beautiful and they're helpful, nothing replaces just sitting and pouring out our hearts before the Lord and tell him our troubles. And we all have them. We all have things we're concerned about. We have things that we're grateful for, things that we would like to see happen. Talk to the Lord. Tell him what's in your heart, just like you would talk to your best friend or someone that is a good confidant. Because who's a better confidant than Christ? Just sit and talk to him. Tell him what your needs are, and you will hear a response from him. In one way or another, he will reach to you. For other people, following the Lord is going to, in addition to that, of course, may mean that as we pray, we realize there are certain issues that we have to address in our lives. Maybe it's one of the hot topic issues, and there are many of them out there that, we're on the other side of the church's teaching on that issue, and it always causes us trouble. And maybe what we have to do is finally decide to sit down and research why the church teaches what she does and understand it. And maybe if we do, we might come to a greater understanding of why the church is teaching it. We might even be able to accept it a little more easily because we understand, and that we're not just responding to the immediate response that so many people would see and say, oh, that doesn't seem right, but understand what's behind it. But while that may be true for some people, for most of us, I'm sure, it's simply a matter of living a more Christ-like life each and every day, being Christ to the people around us. St. Paul reminds us in the second reading today that we hear, if you go on backbiting and harming each other, it will end in your ruin. And he repeats the line of Jesus, do to others as you would have them do to you. And even Jesus today in the gospel reading, when the Samaritans will not accept him, they reject him because he's going to Jerusalem, and James and John want to call down fire from heaven to destroy them, Jesus rebukes them. No, anger, revenge, retribution, that's not the way of Christ. That's not the way he heals. He works with differences. And that's not how he wants to bring union about in our church and in our world. And that's not how any of us are going to bring that about. And yet you know very well that the world today is full of so much anger. So many people respond right away with threats. If you don't agree with me, you hate me. You're hate-filled. And angry responses, threatening violence. And not just in the social world around us, or the political world, but even in the house of faith. And the social media especially become easy targets for people to do that, because people end up typing in a text or a tweet to somebody things they would never say to the person's face. But somehow the anonymity of just using a computer screen makes them throw all of the anger that they want at this person and not thinking about the person who's going to have to read it and how they're going to respond to that. And they forget about that. And even in the household of faith, as I said, we see people responding to differences with anger. Sure, there are always going to be times that we disagree with somebody. Maybe we don't understand what the Pope says, or the bishop, or the pastor, or whoever it is, or some other society or group in the church. And fine, we're going to have differences of opinion. But can we talk about them with charity, with understanding, and with respect for the other person, remembering that that other person is a human being that has the right to respect too? I know one website I see in particular where the man who runs it, it seems if anybody doesn't think exactly the way he does, then he blasts their boat out of the water. And that comes to with the things he says about the Pope, the things he says about Cardinal Dolan, and even local New York priests, because he's a local. And just very uncharitably. And quite frankly, he comes across to me as just very self-righteous. He knows the way the church should be run. And anyone who's not doing it his way is wrong and a fool, and he has the right to blast their boat, and he says nasty, horrible things about them. And if I had a chance to sit with him, I'd say, do you think Jesus is pleased with the way you're treating people? He might agree with you that maybe this person here or there has made a mistake or is not doing something right. But is that the way Jesus wants you to respond to him? Blast his boat out of the water and call him a fool or all the other names that you're calling him? Certainly that's not the Christ of the Scriptures. And yet so often, even ourselves, we can give in to that. Whether it's not just in social media, but family problems, people at work, in school, wherever it may be, people we disagree with, maybe even people we find difficult. To resist the temptation to go at them with anger, but to sit down with respect for them and say, listen, I think there may be a better way to deal with this. Maybe you've made a mistake here. And maybe we're right. Maybe the person did do something wrong or didn't think something through. But you know the old saying, you catch more flies with honey than with vinegar? If we're looking to make a change, angry retorts and nasty things and criticizing people and distorting everything they've done to make it look as bad as possible just so that we can have another reason to be angry at them and blast their boat and call them all the names we want to call them, well, that's not going to change anything. Most people, when people act like that, they just shut them down and say, that's an angry individual and, not worth listening to. And they just say, well, I have the right to protect myself from the poison darts and the slings and arrows of angry people. And so they do that, and they shut them down. And I wouldn't blame people for doing that. But if we want to make a difference, then come to the person respectfully and say, I know you believe this or that, or this is the reason why you did that, or can you explain to me why you did that? I don't understand. I don't see the purpose to it. And maybe the person may agree. They might listen to us and say, well, all right, I see your point. I didn't think about that before. All right, fine. And they might change their mind. Or they may explain something and you might say, I hadn't thought about that. All right, maybe now I agree with you. But this is the way to have reconciliation. This is the way to constructively talk about differences of opinion. Not just throwing angry words and blasting people, especially on social media, and calling them all sorts of names. As children, we were always told to tell people, sticks and stones can break my bones, but names can never harm me. That is the worst lie we have ever taught people. Oh, names can be very harmful. And we've all been harmed by people calling us horrible names and things. And they hurt sometimes even more than somebody throwing a stone at us. And so when we respond to somebody, remember that there's a human being. There's a person behind all of those arrows and that anger that you're throwing into the website at that person. And somebody has to read it. Is that going to bring about the change that we want to see, that we figure will be so angry that the person will say, all right, I'll change my mind? It's not going to work. That's not how it happens. They sometimes just all the more get stronger and say, no, I'm going to be strong and I'm going to defend my point. So if we're looking to make a difference, anger is not going to do it. All it's going to amount to is insulting and hurting another person. And if that's the only purpose we have is putting this thing so that we can be angry and hurt somebody else, well, shame on us. Is that what Jesus would do? Is that how he tells us to treat one another? If you disagree with somebody, get angry with them and just blast their boat out of the water? How sad. The world is doing that, and when we follow that, especially in the household of faith, how much, as St. Paul says, if you continue that way, you will work to your destruction. No, if we want to make improvements in our own household of faith, whether it's the Church Universal, the Archdiocese, our parish, whatever it may be, by all means, if we have a difference, bring it to the appropriate authority, but respectfully, with compassion and understanding for the person behind that decision. That nobody from the Pope down to a simple person did anything deliberately to make sure somebody was offended by that. And if somebody is offended, let's talk about it. And let's do so compassionately and calmly, as disciples of Jesus should do, and not follow the world with the anger and the vitriol that we're seeing that is ruining the world. And then maybe if people can see us responding to each other with respect and making the changes and growing together, maybe the rest of the world will learn from us. And is that not what Jesus taught us to be? The light of the world, to be the ones who give example to the world of how to follow him. And that, as the old song says, they'll know we are Christians by our love. Yes, we're always going to have differences of opinions, and the cardinal may make a decision that not everybody likes, whatever it may be. But if we have a right to our opinions if we want to share them with somebody and say, I'd like you to reconsider that. But always remember to do so with charity, with the respect that Jesus would show to somebody. Because if we can start treating each other with the charity and respect of Christ, then we will end so much of the anger, so much of the hatred, so much of the violence in the world. And instead, we will be bringing to ourselves and to the world around us the peace that only Jesus can bring. Let's not wait till we get around to it. Let's do it today and ask the Lord to help us to be his instruments of peace. May Jesus Christ be praised, now and forever.